whatever. It was a bad night before I fell asleep. Then when I finally fell asleep, it wound up being a night of light and love. I actually stopped breathing. I remember actually how I left my body. And I remember, well, nowadays, people like Buddhists tell me and things, the pituitary gland in your head. I thought I saw myself leaving my body through my eyes. I mean, that's how clear and profound this NDE is, I'm about to tell you. I actually saw myself leaving my body. I heard myself basically take my last breath. And now I'm floating above my body in this beautiful, gorgeous, fluorescent green mist. It was magnificent. It was magnified so many times. The color was the color of life. That's how I could put it. And I remember hovering over the bed, looking down at this cumbersome body. Now, at first when I left my body, I realized it was mine. But now, this was something new was happening to me. I was feeling wonderful. I was feeling embraced. I felt a lightness that I've never felt before. And at that time, I actually started feeling a love come into me. And now I'm not recognizing myself other than that's a body on the bed. And I understand from the other side, they've explained to me that the spirit waits around the body to make sure there's no life left in the body. So at that moment, and I was hovering for a little while, at that moment, the brightness came from behind me. I could actually see the brightness come in like a beam of light on both sides. And I don't remember turning, but I turned instantly and I was drawn into this beautiful gateway, this beautiful tunnel of magnificent light. And now I'm in the tunnel and I'm moving. And I'm starting to move faster and faster. And I feel nothing but love and embrace. And this love is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the tunnel is made up of these beautiful colors. The colors were going by me and through me, and it was magnificent. It was absolutely magnificent. All I felt and I was part of that light itself. And I am moving it. To tell you how it felt, it actually felt, I know I said the speed of light, but that's the only way I could explain it. It felt like I was moving at the speed of light and I was part of the light itself. The light and colors were going by me and through me. And I remember my arrival, which I'll call heaven. And oh my gosh, at this point, I will never forget. I said, I'm home. I'm finally home. Thank God I'm home. And at that time, there were family and friends. I was in this big illuminated area. It was beautiful. They came for a greeting. And that part was beautiful. But I remember a beautiful spirit approaching me. And I turned to it, and she said, yes, Bill, you're home. You're home in the light of our Lord. And she explained who she was. She said, my name is Antonia, and I am one of your guardians. I was with you on your way home. I said to her, you were with me? I didn't even realize anybody was with me at the time. I was moving so fast and just feeling this amazing love. It was wonderful. And she says, yes, I'm the one that was responsible for bringing you to your body and taking you home. And she said to me, these are your family and friends. I said, I know, I could feel them. And when she said, I'm in the light of our Lord, I said, I could feel him. The feeling of love was compounded. I can't explain it here because we're in the human form. But when we're in spirit form and you are light and love, it's a totally different kind of love. If you take the most thing you've ever loved in your life and expand on that, I could say 1,000 times. Unbelievable. And then she says, you have a second and a third guide. And then my second guide appeared. And soon as he starts speaking, I knew this voice. Now, there's no mouth, so you don't see the person, but you're speaking to each other with telepathy. I heard his voice in my head. It was my brother Peter's that died when I was a young boy. I was about 14 years old when my brother Peter died. He was 15, 16, almost 16 years older than me. He was 30 when he passed away from a cancer. But he said to me, "Yes, Billy, this is Peter." And I was just ecstatic. This is when I start realizing about my own life again. And where I remembered my own life back on earth was when he, at that moment, said to me, "It's time for your life review." So we just moved to another beautiful illuminated area, magnificent columns of beautiful crystal, just gorgeous. And he said, "Your life review is going to start shortly." I said, I remember asking what a life review is. Well, your life review, so your audience knows, is they show you up there all the wrong you've ever done in your life, all the right you've ever done. And it's just magnificent how it happens. Because at this moment, once it started, we were back in full body form. Now, Peter was standing alongside me. I was in my body, and he looked younger than I did at the time. He looked like he did at his age, 30, when he died. And I said, "Peter," I remember saying, "Peter, what am I to do?" Something on those lines. And he said, "Bill, just pay attention now." And I remember them showing me clips of my life from when I was a little boy. Now they're showing me things that I might not have done that was so good in my lifetime. I never did anything crazy wrong in my lifetime, but all kids go through teenage things and do little bad things here or there, but nothing extremely bad. But one thing that I can say was very wrong that I did is my first marriage. I left my wife and son when my son was only 2 years old. And this time I felt and became their pain. I remember feeling this pain. It was so agonizing. It was horrible. I mean, they showed me things prior to this already, like, by mistake, I used to be into karate for years, and I was playing with my friends, and I hurt a friend real bad, but I hurt him in front of people, and not meaning to do it. It just happened because I had 3 friends of mine attacking me at the same time, and I felt his emotion, and that's how strong this life review was. This was incredible, but they went on and on to show me things, going on through my whole lifetime. And it got to a point where I said, I can't take this anymore. Please, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Please, I'm sorry. And then they say, now, then I hear a voice that said, now we show him the good side. And it started again. Now it started different. It started when I was a kid, and I wasn't well-to-do. Our family was not well-to-do, but we were comfortable. My mother owned a bar and grill across the street from a baseball field called Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, New York, where the Brooklyn Dodgers played, not the Los Angeles Dodgers. They used to play in Brooklyn in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that's when she owned the bar in the 60s. They left to go out to Los Angeles in 1957 or 1958. But now they're showing me things like when my mom gave me some money, I shared it with all my friends. I brought my friends to the movies. I paid for their popcorn and soda. And from when I was a young child, I was never selfish. I never believed myself to be selfish. I've done good things in my life as far as helping people, but the most important part of this life review at the time when I got to be, I'm an artist, and I used to work in an advertising agency in New York, but then I moved to Florida this is when I was still very young. I moved to Florida when I was 21, and there was no work in my field, so I had to transfer my occupation. So I actually became a paramedic and worked for the county of Miami. And now they showed me things in my life that I did as a paramedic. Now, Peter, the difference was Peter was with me this time. I remember him showing me on one of the times we got a call. We were heading up to we were heading up with our unit, and we were heading up to our base because we had 24-hour shifts. And we were on I-95, and over the radio came a call that says there was a 341, which meant an emergency car accident on 135th Street and I-95 North. And we were already on I-95 North heading up to our station. And I picked up the radio right away, and I said, we got an ETA in less than 2 minutes, because we were on about 95th Street already and I-95 headed northbound. So they called off the other unit. We got there, and the first thing I saw was a truck and a car. The car must have hit the truck in the back. And my eyes went directly to, there was a child, a young boy. He must have been about 14 or 15 years old. He was sitting on the floor crying. Then when I got out of the unit with the medic kit, he's yelling, my sister, my sister, my sister. And I look over, and just at a glance, my partner and I look over at the same time, and her head is through the windshield. And now it's massive blood. But thank God we were right on top of the accident when it happened. But now my partner and I have to decide, are we going to remove her from the glass, or are we going to wait for the fire trucks to come with the cutters? And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and he said, Bill, I think we should take her. I said, I agree, because if we waited, she would have bled to death. So we very, very carefully took her off the windshield. I went outside and picked the top part of her head up, and he got her from the inside, and we put her on the gurney. And I remember she was passed out. She was thrashing a little bit, but she was passed out. And I was holding her head, the top of her head, trying to put bandages around her head to hold it down with gauze pads when we finally got into the unit. And the brother was sitting right in the back of the ambulance. So I'm over on the side of the stretcher. I got my hand on the bottom of her neck and the top of her head, and I'm praying now. I'm asking God to help me. I said, God, help me. And I seen Peter's hand come in with mine. He was standing right alongside me. And this was magnificent at this time. We got right off to the hospital. It was Pine General Hospital, which used to be called Parkway General. And they took her right into surgery. My partner, Danny, and I it was a very horrific accident. We were full of blood. And I prayed for that girl all day long. All day, I prayed for her. And Danny and the other guys in the unit said, Bill, you have to stop bringing your work home with you, or bringing it along with you. But it was hard. It was hard not to think about that. So we got through our whole shift, 24 hours, and I said the next morning we were about ready to go back to the station, the main station, to drop the unit off. We were on 24 hours and finished. And I said, Danny, if you don't mind, I was the guy in the back. There was a paramedic that worked on the people. Danny was also a paramedic, but he was a driver. I said, if you don't mind, I would like to go to the hospital where we dropped her off. And it's about probably 5 miles, 6 miles out of the way. But then he said, all right, we went to Parkway Hospital. We walked in through the emergency room, and I saw a nurse I know. And I said, I forgot what her name was, Ann or Becky. I said, you know what happened to that young girl we brought in yesterday? And she turned around to me. And meanwhile, everybody was thinking she was dead. She turned around to me and said, do you want to meet her? And chills went through my whole body. The hair on my arms was standing up. So she took us up to the room, and her brother was sitting in the corner, and she's sitting up in bed with her whole head bandaged up. But there was actually no cuts but little scrapes on her face, but her whole head bandaged up by her hairline. And the brother says to her, he says, this is the man that saved your life. And the parents were there, and it was such a joyous moment. I just felt wonderful. And these are the kinds of things that they showed me in my life review, the good things. And more and more and more went on of the good things, because there were so many things that I've done through the years when I was a paramedic. So I won't, keep you with all that information because it's long. But, and I hear a voice that the good outweighs the bad. And the whole grayness drops, and we're back in our spirit form again. So it's me, Peter, and Antonia. And Antonia said, or Peter said, I forgot which one, but they said, your third guardian is the person that gives you knowledge and wisdom throughout your life. He's that, I always explained it like the little person on the side speaking into your ear. That whisper in your ear is a path to the right gateway to go through. So that's what we talk about, intuition. And they announced Oron, my third guardian, and he came. He was magnificently glowing beam of light. At this moment, I looked down at myself, and I turned from this misty green, beautiful mist to this magnificent beam of light. It was unbelievable. And he started explaining things to me, but he said we were going to rise to another level now. And he said to me, Bill, we're going to the Hall of Events. I didn't know what that was. I had no control over the situation. And Peter and Oren and I went to the Hall of Events. And at first, it was just looked like an illuminated, gigantic auditorium. I said buildings looked like crystals to me. That's what they were like. There was no need for sitting because we're in our spirit form now. But in the Hall of Events, they showed me the past. They showed me the present. They showed me the future. And it was magnificent. They showed me the past before my birth. They showed me things that didn't have to do with me, like the war in Korea in the early 50s. I was born in 1952. I have relatives that were in that war, so maybe they showed me that because of that. But they showed me events. These were events that were special events that were concerning to everybody. They showed me events that led all the way up, all the way up. They showed me the event with Kennedy getting shot. They showed me the event with Martin Luther King getting shot. They showed me all the way up to my near-death experience, but then beyond. The next event they showed me was 9/11. I remember, because I'm from New York, I had many friends working in those buildings. And I remember when they showed me these events, it was back in form again. We were actually moving. It was like being in a computer of a screen, or you know how the old flickering things used to happen in a movie. It was flickering, 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 but at great speeds, phenomenal speeds. And then it would stop. So it would bring us to this event and that event and on and on and on. But they stopped at 9/11, and now the building's coming down around us. And I started run. I didn't know if I was running towards the building or not, but Peter grabbed my arm. He said, "Bill, this is your future. Nothing's going to happen." And I just stood there, and it was amazing because I felt no debris. I didn't feel anything. And I said, I have friends. I have friends in that building. I was emotional at this time. And at that moment, we were taken again. So it was like a ride. It was like a journey. And it was amazing. We were taken, and I believe we were taken to Baghdad because I knew I was somewhere in the Middle East due to the people's dress, the way people dress. And there was bombs going off all around us. And again, while we were there, I was noticing the bombs, and I guess it was just instinct, but I remember running again, and he said, "Bill, you don't have to run. You don't have to run." And then they take me to the future, which I believe are these times today. I mean, things have gotten to a point where families don't talk to each other anymore. All over what? Politics? It doesn't make sense. We're supposed to be a loving humans that help other humans through service. This is one of the most important things. I'm going to get up to these principles of enlightenment in a little bit. But one of the principles of enlightenment is service. Our being, our spirit grows while in service. And they showed me two paths for the future. They showed me a path that was so destructive and horrible. And then they showed me a path that was almost like a utopia. It was beautiful. So I believe today we have some major decisions to make in the world. People have to sit and talk together. People have to think about maybe feeding people in the world that are hungry instead of these whatever is going on at the time, wars or anything else. It's very, very, very important because we don't want to wind up as a society, and this is all around the world going on. I mean, we don't want to end up as a society that's living like in the Mad Max days. We want to live on the other side where it's utopia, where people do and help and work and love and pass good on to others. We don't have to be in a place where we have to fight for clean water and food. You know, it could get to a point where people take and take and take and take and take from this earth, but they don't replace and replace and replace what they take. So it could get to a point that gets so bad, our nourishment comes from Mother Earth's veins, her rivers. Our nostrils are our oxygen that we breathe. So very, very important. If I could get anything across with my new book, it's for people to come together somehow, some way. But it's so important to have that and to feel that. Now, what happened at this point at the Hall of Events? Then it just everything would just disappear at one time. And then we were moving on again. So we're past the Hall of Events now. They bring me up to a final plateau